started it, Gary McSpadden and myself, is we have come into contact with some of the best young people, and I mean that, in the entire world. They don't get any better than, I think I counted last time, we probably had 16, 17, maybe 18 members in that group. And I got to tell you, they're all, from a quality and character perspective, I think some of God's best. And especially this fine man we're going to talk to today, Buddy Mullen. Buddy, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Bill. I'm grateful to be with you today, even from afar.
I can remember when we were putting a group together is not as easy as it looks. But first of all, and I mentioned it earlier, you got to start with character. And when it comes to character, it must be the water down there. I don't know, or if I don't know where your source is. I think a lot of it came from your father. You've talked to me a lot about your dad. You have a great relationship with your dad, right?
Yes, sir. I come from good stock, good parents that have always been very even keeled and deep rooted. You know.
Was he tough when you were, let's get to the hard part. Was he tough when you were 13, 14, 15, and 16?
You know, he was. He demanded a lot out of me in areas and in ways, but he balanced that out so much with encouragement. And that's what he always used to say something to me. He just say simple things like, "Buddy, you're never as bad as people think you are, but remember, son, you're never as good either as they say you are." So you got to learn how to balance that in your life. You know, you got to learn to find your own, just your own place to stand, and not always believe everything anybody says. There's a balance to this, you know.
It's called perspective. And
that's what my dad, that's what he would do. He would say the same things. My dad used to tell me, Bill, he'd say, "Buddy, you know, you've got a great voice. And if you sing, people, and you use that talent, people are going to remember that voice for some time. He said, "But if you'll learn to communicate, and if you'll learn to touch them with the words and with the feeling of that gifting you've been given, then they'll remember that experience for a lifetime. That'll transcend your voice or who you are, and you'll actually touch and reach a much deeper spot in them. But if you just sing great and everything, yeah, you'll get a few pats on the back and people will remember you for a while. But if you want to make an impact, then learn how to reach in and communicate the message."
And so the early Mullins family singing group, that would have been you and your dad, and who else?
My mom, who's a great pianist and songwriter of her own, and my sister. So it was just the four of us. Dad would preach. Man, we toured. We started in 1977 on the road full time. Mom and dad sold their house, and we moved into a bus. And we traveled from 1977 to 1987, 88 without ever having a house. We lived on that bus, and we would go from church to church and hold meetings. So I literally grew up in church. I mean, and back then, Bill, I don't know, I know you remember this. Back then, we would start a revival on Sunday morning, and it would go through Friday night. And then we would travel on Saturday to the next place where we were going to start, and we'd start again on Sunday morning and go through Friday night. Yeah. And for the first, from 1977 till almost at least until the mid 80s, we held 42 to 46 weeks of meetings a year.
How old would you have been then?
We started, I was 8.5.
Oh, Lord.
And my dad put a bass guitar in my hand. He doesn't play music. My mom is the musician. He just handed me a little Music Master Fender bass and said, "Here, you learn to play that and learn to play it and sing it." And sing it, not sing the bass, but sing the bass, And man, I didn't realize then that what he was doing was opening the door to what I would love to do the rest of my life.
The first time that I heard you, of course, was in this room from which I'm talking to you right now. This is the famous, historic Studio C.
Woo, amen.
There are ghosts in this room. Do you remember when you first came in with you and Paul Lancaster? Who were the other two members in the Mullins?
Mark, we had two other brothers that were with us, Mark and Wesley Willett.
Yeah.
And then a young man that played guitar that also sang with us too, Joel Huggins.
Yeah.
And so that was the...
And I can remember you weren't the traditional Southern gospel kind of sound. You were kind of creeping towards the edge and seeing how far you could get out there. But the harmony...
Especially with our hair, Bill. Our hair was really creeping towards the edge.
Oh, yes. Yes. But I tell you, when you did the a cappella tune, it was an old hymn. Do you remember what hymn it was?
My Savior, first of all, I believe, was the one we did.
You're right. And I said, these guys know a little bit about harmony. They're doing this too well.
That was something. And you know what? I mean, I have a little bit of a beef to take with you because we were this group of guys who loved to sing and loved to do good harmony, but we also loved to play our instruments, and we were a band. We were trying to be more of a band than even singers.
Yeah.
And you fell in love with all of our a cappella stuff.
With the harmony.
Yeah. And so that's what we ended up doing so much. And on the homecoming videos and things like that's what we would do. And honest to goodness, people were booking us. And we would show up at a church and start parting in a bunch of equipment and all this stuff. And they were like, "Oh, we didn't realize you guys were like a band. We thought it was an all a cappella thing." So I have a little bit, just something little to take up with you on that.
So thanks a lot, William. Thanks a lot for that one. Well, if that is the truth, then you join a lot of great groups like the Martins and the Isaacs and a lot of those who came in, and I heard their harmony, and I said, if you can do that, you're welcome.
You know who really impacted me, Bill, first with the a cappella in that world was the Cathedral album from years ago.
Yeah.
Remember that album I can't remember the title of it, but it was just an a cappella. I think Kirk Talley was with them at the time and it was a great a cappella album.
It was
and
beautiful.
That one impacted me.
Well, that's where I met you, and that's when we needed a singer. We came to you, and you were with us for 2 or 3 years. They were wonderful years. We had a great time. It's interesting. People often ask me, now, what do the singers do? Because we've had 16, 17, 18 of them. And when we have the reunion, it's a wonderful chance for people who have followed us to catch up with all of these beautiful human beings that God has allowed me to intersect with their ministry and what they're doing at a certain time. And it's a good chance for them to get to meet you. After you left the vocal band, you started, did you start this or did your father start this organization?
Hope for the World.
Hope for the World. Tell us about it.
Hope for the World began in 1991. It's when the Iron Curtain fell in the country of Albania. And my father and another man by the name of Jimmy Franks, who had been on the mission field. Jimmy came back from being in Germany on the mission field, but he made a stop in Albania on his way home. And in Albania, it was the first time anybody could get in there with the love of Christ. And he just came and asked my dad if he would take a trip with him to Albania. And they went in, and when they went in, they realized that it was a country that for 50 years, it was proclaimed an atheist country. They weren't allowed any kind of religion in the country. And now this the curtain had fallen, and they were begging people to come in and help their kids.
Geographically, where is Albania? Tell the folks.
Right across from the Boot Hill of Italy. If you just go right across the water from the Boot Hill of Italy, you'll run right into Albania. It's attached to Greece. It's just a little north of Greece and south of Kosovo.
So, is it on the water? On the
Yes,
what?
on the Adriatic.
Mediterranean?
That's right. Yes, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful country.
Yeah.
And when they got in there back in '92, there were hundreds of orphans and they just weren't being taken care of. And the country didn't know what to do. It was trying to find its legs coming out of communism and everything. And so they actually just opened the doors and said, if you'll help us take care of our children, we'll allow you to teach them about Christ and talk with them about your God. And so that's how my dad got involved. And his statement always that has stuck with me, Bill, has been he couldn't speak their language. They couldn't speak his language, but he was standing on the doorsteps of an orphanage, and all these little kids grabbed him around the waist and everything. And he looked down and they looked back up at him. And he said their eyes and their tears spoke louder than any words could ever speak. And he knew that he was supposed to be there and supposed to be. And little did any of us know, I didn't know, that God was placing our family through my father and mother on a path that would guide a lot of our family's life for a lot of years.
When's the last time you've been there?
We were there last year, September of last year. We went and we were there with my parents, which is so beautiful that I get to do that now with my dad, having had a stroke 6 years ago. It has left him with what they call aphasia. And he's not able to speak. He can understand and think about what he wants to say, but he's not able to say it. And you, Bill, who know Dad was always real outgoing and real talkative and a people person, and he can't make full sentences anymore. So it's a joy for me. I get it. Mullins are known for being emotional, so if I talk about this, I get a little emotional. But it is really a privilege for me to be able to be his voice whenever we go over. And when we enter that country, my mom and dad are like the king and queen because they've been there and loved on so many children, over 10,000 orphans. They've had the privilege of touching their lives through the years. And so when we walk into Albania, I really know who's in control, not me. I remember something you said to me that stuck with me, and you may remember this. I don't expect you to. But every once in a while when you would come to Nashville after I had already left the vocal band, we get together and go to breakfast. And I always look forward to those moments. One time you were encouraging me, always encouraging me. And you said to me, buddy, it's not the fact that you don't have the stuff to be in the game. You definitely have what it takes to be in the game, but will you stay in long enough to hit the long ball? And when you said that to me, of course, at 27 or 8 years old, it's a little different than now at 52 for me. But you know what? I've realized, and what you were trying to say to me then too, is everybody's long ball is different than the next guy's. And so I'm really, really thrilled to know that God is so patiently walking us through each step of the journey, and he's allowing us to hit the long ball. He's giving us time at bat constantly so that we can do that.
You know something, the pandemic has been bad in a lot of ways, obviously, but the good ways that it has been played out this weekend. Anybody who's been in Indiana know that we have some cold weather, some real bad snows, and we have some real hot humidity. But it seems like this year, maybe because of the pandemic, God has said, I'm going to give you some beautiful weather. And the weather this summer has been amazing. And this weekend, it was like 69, 71,
Oh,
72. So one morning, I was down walking by the stream. We got 20 acres here that we bought when I was teaching school. We've been married 57 years. 55 of those years have been in this home and in this 20 acres. When we bought it, it was just a plain field. I started planting trees, and you've been there. The trees on our property are just gorgeous. And I was out there with the earphones on, listening to great classical music, and I was overwhelmed. It's one of those spiritual moments. I think of this beautiful moments in this studio where God is swept down real close. And I think of the beautiful moments in a church. But those moments couldn't have been any better than out there with my earphones on. I was walking, and I called Gloria, who was up the house, and I said, I'm going to go up and get the golf cart, and you and I are going to, what do you call those little speakers? Ours is blue, and you Bluetooth it, whatever.
yeah, yeah, right.
Okay, so we plugged it in to the Bluetooth thing, and slowly, I mean 1 mile an hour, driving under those beautiful trees that I planted, and with the help of some good yard guys in the last 20, 30 years. But in the early years, I was planting them. And I said to her, I said, honey, good things take time, don't they? You've got to be willing to invest in it and wait and be patient and be patient. And I think that underlines maybe what I was trying to say to you 30 years ago. I don't know what long ball I was talking about, but to make a dent, to aim at something, and you have given your whole life to this hope for the world. And I think I probably said to you, aim at it, stay at it, and Revelation says, persevere in it. Persevere to the very, very end. And the good things can happen, as far as I'm concerned, that happened a couple mornings ago when that sweet lady who has given me 57 years of her life, and just had a beautiful time. So it's good to hear you say that. I still believe that good things take time. We're in the hurricane season. When was it? A year ago when you were in a hurricane season?
September 1st, a year ago.
Now, what was the date?
September 1st.
September 1st.
2019.
And where were you?
I was in Manowar Key, Abaco, Bahamas. And that was the very first island that Hurricane Dorian centered. I mean, it hit the island, it centered it. While it was coming in, we knew it was coming, of course. About 48 hours, we knew it was going to be a direct hit on the island. And it was a Category 4 then. The people on the island, Bill, were all telling us, this is going to be a tough hurricane, but they've been through hurricanes before, and they know how to batten down. And they were like, we tried to get off the island. I'm not going to try to act like we were real tough. We tried to get flights out, but we couldn't get off and get back into the States. So they started telling us what we needed to do and how we needed to, batten down everything and fill up all the sinks and all the tubs with water because we would be without power, for a few days and all of this. So we did all of that. And as that storm got closer, it kept getting stronger and stronger. And you know what? I just heard this past week that they have officially considered that hurricane. Now, when looking back at it, Bill, they've considered it to be a 6.
Ooh, that's not good.
It never been. They don't really have a 6.
Yeah.
But they said that it was such high sustained winds for so long that was above the Category 5 that they've gone ahead and considered it a Category 6.
And you and your wife were there.
We were there. We were there ministering at a church on the island. We'd been there before. It's a church that they support missions highly from that area, and so we had been there times before, and they had us in for what we thought was going to be a wonderfully relaxing time, and it was for about 5 days. It was beautiful and relaxing, and then it ended with Hurricane Dorian, which ended up being over 85% of the buildings on that island destroyed, or greatly destroyed at least, and most of the boats. I mean, it took a 130-foot barge that was in the cove and flipped it upside down. I mean, Dorian was unbelievable. I've never been through anything like that.
You know, you had a whole bunch of friends, homecoming friends, when they heard about that, and you were there for how many days? Did they hold you over until you could get out?
We were supposed to leave on September 2nd. We were supposed to fly out. We didn't actually get home until the 6th of September, and so we were without power anyway to communicate really with people for a few days.
Boy, a lot of your homecoming friends were praying. Every time we got together, everybody said, "Let's pray for Buddy and his wife."
There were 300. Bill, let me throw this in here. There were 300 people on that island. Most of them are people that live there year round, and they're indigenous to the island. I just have to say, out of praise, 300 people, not one injury, not one death either. Certainly not one death, but not one injury because of that hurricane. And yet that island was totally devastated. So the prayers of God's people, I'm never more sure that prayers are heard.
So how did you finally get out? Was there a plane that got in, a small plane, or was it air?
They had a ball field on the little island we were on. Was only 3 miles long and half mile wide at the largest area of it. And there was a little ball field there on the island that was actually still clear of debris. And so about the second day, that storm, Bill, when it hit on the 1st, it wasn't until the 3rd that hurricane winds had died down. Mm-hmm. We literally went for 2 days with winds above 100 miles an hour. Mm. I mean, the first day, winds in excess and even hitting 300 mile an hour the first day. The rest of the time, for 48 more hours, we had winds above 100.
And so I missed it. So what kind of plane got you out of there? I didn't hear that.
A helicopter. They brought a helicopter in, and they started flying older people off the island that needed to do things. And then we all got in line. And what they would do is they would fly us from there to this northern part of another island, Treasure Key, that still had a plane where planes could land.
Yeah,
but there was no building because it was destroyed. The building was destroyed. There just was an airstrip.
Okay, so what kind of plane came in and got you there?
Well, when they flew us over there and I got down, all that was there were all private planes. These were all just private planes that were bringing in food and different things like that. And I just went around and started asking different pilots, are you from the U.S.? I have a U.S. passport, and finally I found a group of ex-military men that had flown in to do search and rescue.
Yeah.
And they introduced me to these these two guys that were flying amphibious planes. And they said, we'll call back to the States, and if we can, we'll take in. And that's what ended up happening. I mean, we ended up getting home, and we just flew wherever they were going. We were at their mercy.
Okay, where'd you fly into in Florida?
I flew into, actually, and there's so much of this story, Bill, because Carrie and I were separate at this point. I sent her ahead of me. She flew on another private plane, and I didn't know where she was. I had no idea where she was. If I could tell you the whole story, you'd be amazed. The story's crazy.
Okay, so where did I
flew into Fort Lauderdale. I flew into Fort Lauderdale. She flew into Fort Pierce.
I bet you Fort Lauderdale never looked so good, right?
Oh my goodness. And you know what? You had held it together. I hadn't lost, I hadn't been emotional those whole days, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know, your body just goes into survival mode. And as soon as we touched down on American soil, man, the emotions hit, you know, and I mean, you're just thanking God. You're just thanking God.
So did you call Carrie then?
They transported me from wherever that was to an airport, to the Fort Lauderdale airport. And I started looking for a flight to get back over here towards Panama City, which is where we live. We live up in Panama City, Destin.
Was she
City.
back? Was she back in Panama City by then?
Well, I had no idea. So I have no phone because everything's dead. You know, we've not had.
This is a crazy story.
I looked into. Oh, I'm telling you, I looked in my bag and I had my iPad, and it still had 5% battery in my iPad. And we were back in an airport, so it had Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So for the first time, I hit call on Carrie. I did a FaceTime call just to see if where she was. Did she make it back to the U.S.? I don't know. And she picked up the phone, and she was driving a car. She was in a car driving, and she picked up the phone. And I said, "Where are you?" And she says, "Well, I'm almost to Orlando. I'm just driving home." And I said, "You know what? I'm going to get a flight to Orlando. I'm going to get a flight from Orlando to here. And why don't you get us a hotel room tonight there in Orlando? and let's, because we hadn't had a bath. We hadn't had in days, you know. It's just been perfect." So I flew from there to Orlando, and we spent the night there, and then we both got up and drove home from there.
Okay, so let's go back to the island. While you were there, you got the idea for this song, "Hold These Walls." Tell us about the song. By the way, for you who are listening, Buddy is a fine songwriter. Comes from a family, they know what a good song is. So tell us about the song.
Thank you. The second half of the storm, you know, you go through the first half, and then we were in the center of the eye, and we made it to another house during that time while we were in the center of the eye. When we got inside that house, the second half of the storm started, and immediately the front of their roof blew off. And so Carrie and I and about 10 other people, of course, went running to find shelter. We held up in their bathroom, and we closed the door, and there was a bunch of us in there, and we just began to pray. There was a man, Bill, that ran in there with us that from the moment we walked in, he started proclaiming death. I mean, he was scared. He was just yelling, "We're all going to die. We're all going to die. This is it. This is it." And I don't know, something in me, Bill, I think it's the spirit in me, just said, "Yeah, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear we're all going to die." And so I began to just pray over the top of this man. And so I prayed. While I prayed for 2.5 hours while that place shook, and the roof would go like this, and those block walls were literally moving like this for 2.5 hours. In the middle of that time, the Holy Spirit told me while I was praying, he said, "Buddy, I want you to say out loud, 'Lord, hold these walls and hold this roof.'" Well, that's pretty understandable. So I proclaimed that out loud, and then I went back to praying. And a few seconds later, he said, "Say that again." And so I said it again. And for a number that I can't count of times, many times throughout that event, I would say, "Hold these walls and hold this roof." And I really realized once those winds did subside and drop down, I really realized, Bill, that what God was doing what all the songs that I've heard. God didn't need me to say, "Hold these walls and hold this roof." God knew I needed to be reminded who was holding the walls and holding the roof. And he needed me to say that. And he needed those people in that room to understand that he's holding the walls. And so I think about that, and I remember that once the whole event was over, the gentleman that had run in there with us and was proclaiming death, he stood up at the end of that event, and he put his arms around me, and he just hung on me, and he cried, and he said, I thank God for putting you in this room with me today. Because of you being in here, I met God here today. And I realized more and more and more that God was doing much more in that room than just saving our lives. He was getting people's attention. He was getting my attention in other ways. Oh, I could preach sermons about how he got my attention in that room. But he wasn't just talking to me, he was talking to everybody in that room. And so anyway, just a blessing.
Well, you have a story, and a lot of people go all through life and think their life is pretty boring. Yours is, and you know what? When you follow the Lord, your life is never going to be boring. And most of us learn the real lessons of life out of the struggle, out of the tough times. I can brag about this song because I didn't write it. But when that kid over in Mark Mathis over in Missouri sent that to me, sometimes it takes a mountain, sometimes a raging sea, sometimes it takes a desert. The best line I think I've heard, at least in that year that I found that song, was, sometimes it takes a desert to get a hold of me. And the bottom line,
that's what God was doing to me, Bill, in that room. He was getting a hold of me.
yeah,
I had been in a bad way for a few months, and I had shut down. And God needed to get my attention, and He needed to remind me that He's still in control, and that I needed to be listening to Him. I had stopped listening, and so He was getting a hold of me. He'd go to great lengths to do that.
well, for what it's worth, you could honestly say, you got my attention now. I'm listening.
Amen. Amen. And I don't want to go through that again. So I don't ever want to repeat something God wants to teach me. You know, I need to learn that.
Life lessons, and thank God for them. And most of the time they're tough, but still I find myself grateful and saying, okay, you made me tough enough to get through that, and probably tough enough in the future. Buddy, it's always a joy to be with you, my friend. I am so proud of you. I am just so proud of you. You're one of our youngins, and you've done well, and that makes me proud. Give our love to Carrie.
We love you. Tell Gloria I love her. Thank you so much for this time today. Good to see your face. Makes me smile.
Good to see you. Blessings.